Hello NFL fans and welcome back to the Wall of NFL channel. In this video today I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently. I'm going to try and talk about the NFL weekend as a whole without really stopping and try and do it more of a podcast format as to how I was doing it before, where I was shooting a little bit and then stopping, shooting a little bit and then stopping, and talking about each game individually. Whereas I'll still talk about each game individually, but more as a podcast kind of format. The Falcons and the Saints yesterday was a really weird game. Neither team really got into it at all until the Falcons got a field goal and a touchdown by half time. But even then, that was in the second quarter, and neither team really were able to get a proper footing into it until the Falcons in the second half came out after the Saints got their field goal with a touchdown, and they were up 17-3 rather than just 10-0, which is two touchdown lead, which is fairly sizable when you're in the second half. But then when you look at later on in the fourth quarter, when there were 10 minutes left, the Falcons were up 24-6. And in this case, there were some of us, of course, thinking the Falcons, they've run away with this game. But then there's another side that remembers that the Falcons, they seem to throw away a lot of big fourth quarter leads. Of course, the most notable one that comes to mind is when they were up 28-3 in the Super Bowl back in, I think it was 2018 against the Patriots. And they threw that all the way. And in this case, they nearly did the same as well. The Saints, with their 3 drives before the game ended, scored touchdown, and a touchdown again to go up 21 unanswered points. And eventually, with about 1 minute left, the Saints were actually up 25-24. And I, as a Saints fan, I was so ecstatic, and I thought it was awesome. But of course, there was 1 minute left on the clock, so I wasn't fully certain, but I was like, the Falcons, they've let it all go again. But Cordell Patterson, who has been brilliant for the Falcons since he joined, a lot of coaches have really struggled to get enough out of Cordell Patterson, but Arthur Smith has done a really great job of it since that he joined as head coach. So they got their 3 touchdowns really quickly. It looked like the Saints were going to win the game by a point. But yes, Cordell Patterson with a 64-yard pass catch, and he just burnt Paulson Adebo, the third-round rookie for the Saints. And honestly, when I saw that happen, my heart dropped, because I knew that after that big, long run, there was no hope for the Saints. The Falcons, they have a really reliable kicker, Younghoe Koo, who got the field goal in the last second to win them the game 27-25. So it was really gutting. Trevor Siemian, he really wasn't so good until the fourth quarter with that 10 minutes left. And of course, Paulson Adebo really struggled. And Quan Alexander also struggled against Cordell Patterson as well. But Cordell Patterson, he really is that guy that they lent on in this game on Sunday. So the Buccaneers, in the end, stay top of the NFC South, despite the Saints having an opportunity to go top against the Falcons while the Buccaneers were on their bye. So the NFC South is actually looking really unpredictable this year. And while the Buccaneers are on their bye, the Panthers did play later on, which I'll be covering shortly. Okay, so now on to the Broncos at the Cowboys. This was even weirder than the first game. I mean, it was a pretty weird Sunday overall, week 9. Who'd have thought this weekend would have been so crazy? But the Broncos, they've really struggled against winning teams in general so far this season. And the only 3 wins before coming into this game was all against like 3 of the 4 or 5 worst teams in the league. So they'd beaten the Texans, the Jets, and the Jaguars, I believe it is, before coming into this one. And that was it. Other than that, they've lost quite obviously to, I think, the Raiders, the Chargers, a couple of other teams as well. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. But the Cowboys coming into it were like, Cowboys, easy win. They have the best offense in the league in terms of yardage and points scored. And their defense is actually top 5, I think, as well, with Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons having massive years this year. And the Broncos, they basically won the game 30-0. I know if you check the score line, it says 30-16, but that was all garbage time. The Broncos basically had the game in the bag by the time the Cowboys even got a foot in. And in fact, before those last couple of drives where the Cowboys did score, Dak Prescott was 8 completions for 24 attempts and 102 yards, which is a complete stinker of a game. And the Broncos, they shut down the top offense in the league. And I don't know now whether this is going to be a blueprint for how to stop the Cowboys going into the future, or maybe this is just a complete burn the tape game and the Cowboys just had a stinker, time to move on and see what happens in the next few weeks. But I don't know, I do have a little bit of a question in the back of my mind though about the Cowboys now, because I mean, the Cowboys, I don't know, they weren't great last year, so I'm not sure if I truly believe in them yet as a top team. I mean, they did have their 6-game winning streak, but yeah, not so convincing. I mean, 75 yards at halftime. I mean, the Broncos DBs did a real number on the Cowboys. So now on to the Patriots at the Panthers. And this game I thought was actually kind of predictable, if you ask me, because the Patriots and Bill Belichick, they just destroy Sam Darnold at any opportunity. So far, Sam Darnold is 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions against Bill Belichick for the Panthers and for the Jets, his previous team. But the Panthers, it doesn't look like they've made a great decision on Sam Darnold. I mean, they had Teddy Bridgewater last year. He was very safe, didn't really turn the ball over. And now they've moved on to Sam Darnold with a bit of a higher ceiling, but has really not been so great since being in the NFL. I mean, he had a high ceiling and he had a lot of potential. But it just looks like to me that it just hasn't happened. And I think this game pretty much epitomizes Sam Darnold in the NFL so far. I mean, he's had 3 interceptions in this game against the Patriots. And he looked very skittish in the pocket. He didn't look like he was able to really get his footing. And I'm not sure whether PJ Walker's going to come in this next week in week 10 after a really, really bad game for Sam Darnold. But this actually, it could be his last game in the NFL as a starting quarterback. I mean, I think he'll be a backup, but I mean, I do not think Sam Darnold has really put enough out there for a lot of teams to have faith in him. I know a few teams would have done because the Jets were just rubbish, never really supported him. But, I mean, even Robbie Anderson, who played with him at the Jets, was yelling at him a lot when he was making mistakes yesterday. And I know after the game he said, oh yeah, he was just trying to hype him up, he needs to improve. But, man, in that real passion in the game, maybe Robbie Anderson, we kind of saw what the rest of the Panthers kind of thought about Sam Darnold, and he doesn't. I'm not sure if he gives the Panthers a real chance of winning, winning late into the season, and even giving them a playoff opportunity. I just don't think that's there with Sam Darnold on the field, and maybe it's time for them to move on. Maybe they'll be in the race for Deshaun Watson come the 2022 offseason, or maybe Aaron Rodgers if he's out there. I don't know, maybe Russell Wilson as well. Or maybe they'll try and trade up in the draft, similar to what the 49ers did last year. But I really would not be surprised if their backup, PJ Walker, came into the game. He does offer a little bit more in terms of running the ball with his legs, so maybe, he gives them a better chance of winning. JC Jackson for the Patriots was brilliant yesterday. He went for a pick 6 and pretty much summed up the game for the Panthers and the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots, they really played hard. One big storyline actually coming out of the Patriots game is that Mac Jones is a bit of a dirty player. I can't remember who it was. Let me just have a quick look. It was against Burns. Sorry. So Mac Jones was twisting Brian Burns' ankle and on a play, and that's something you kind of see more from defenders. So I can see why Mac Jones ended up doing it, but I mean, I hate that. If you're trying to injure someone, which is basically when you're grabbing someone's ankle and just twisting it, like Mac Jones was, that is not okay. And I think that could ruin someone's career at the end of the day. But anyway, Mac Jones, so far, brilliant this season, not really put a foot wrong. And in this game as well, a 24-6 victory for the Patriots. So the Vikings and the Ravens, of course, play it close again. So the Vikings, they seem to play every single game really close, and it always goes down to the wire. This is both of the Ravens and the Vikings' third overtime game of the year so far, both more than any other teams in the league. And the Vikings, they're such a weird team because they really do have the talent to be a good team. I mean, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, both of them had really good games yesterday. Kirk Cousins, I think he, of course, had a decent game as well. He's the distributor to Justin Jefferson. And, of course, Adam Thielen nearly won them the game yesterday with a late touchdown. But they just are not able to set the tempo in any game. And I don't know whether that comes down to the coaching, or maybe it comes down to Kirk Cousins, which we were talking about after the Cowboys game last week. But the Vikings, if they're able to set the tempo of a game, I could see them winning a lot of games. But they're now 3-5. I mean, maybe one of the best 3-5 games in history. Maybe they're one of the best 3-5 teams in history. But they just don't seem to be able to get it done ever. And the Ravens, they're completely the other side of it, because the Ravens, they're not like that much better in terms of talent, but they have the coaching staff, and they're the team that wins the games when it's tight, when it's a really tight game and it's late on. So the Vikings always seem to throw it away, whereas the Ravens seem to win the game when it gets late on, and there's a lot of, who it's toing and froing, who's going to win. Lamar Jackson has seemed to be excellent at coming back late from behind recently, and their running game, no one really runs the ball when they're down late in a game, but the Ravens seem to do it really well, and they were down 13 points before they came back, and eventually before it went to overtime. So even though the Vikings as well intercepted the ball in overtime, and they were right going down the field, ready to win the game, but they still weren't able to get it done, and I think it just goes down to they're not a very clutch team. Last year it was the LA Chargers, this year the Minnesota Vikings. So, I do hope the Vikings are able to at least challenge for the playoffs, because, they create a lot of exciting games. So, I wouldn't mind seeing them in the playoffs over a team like the Falcons, because, the Falcons play a lot of close games as well, but they just don't have the same kind of quality that the Vikings do. This Browns against the Bengals game kind of went exactly opposite to how I thought it would go. The Browns, of course, they have an excellent roster. The Bengals do as well. But the Browns, they're just kind of in that upper tier in terms of roster. And Baker Mayfield, despite him sometimes holding back the Browns in a lot of ways, the Browns as a whole, with their running game, with how they played defensively yesterday, they're actually a really good team. And I know they just need to fit a few pieces together. So Baker Mayfield, he just needs to distribute the ball a little bit, get it out there. And then if he's able to do that, they have a lot of success. And also, they've been one of the most injured teams so far this year, with both of their left and right tackles being out, and Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt going out injured. And they have a lot of depth as well. And now Nick Chubb's back in the game. He had over 100 yards rushing, and I think 1 or 2 touchdowns as well. And he looked dynamite. He was getting right into the open field and galloping down the river to the end zone, and he just looked fantastic. I think that the Bengals, they really tried to force it to Jamar Chase a lot, in the same way that the Browns always hand it off to Nick Chubb. But Jamar Chase wasn't able to get in the game very much, and the last 2 weeks, they've been kind of forcing it to him. And when he hasn't been able to come up with it, or those deep passes haven't been able to land with him, the Bengals just haven't looked quite themselves, and I think they need that extra element offensively to kind of open up the game a little bit more. So if you have that deep threat or that big target out wide, it also means that Joe Mixon, the running back, has a lot of ability, a lot of access to the middle of the field, and he's able to run the ball a lot as well and make a big difference. So the Browns, complete blowout, and I think it was pretty much summed up by that big Denzel Ward 99-yard interception. The Browns were just not holding back today, and they made a lot of massive plays. Not really what you expect from a running team, but wow, big plays all over the place for the Browns. So the Bills against the Jaguars now, and the Bills, we all expected them, the class of the AFC, as we've been kind of calling them in this first few weeks of the season, this first half of the season. And Josh Allen's just been trying to force it down the field. They've been giving the ball a bit too much to Josh Allen. They weren't able to get the run game going at all. They were without Dawson Knox, their tight end, and Zach Moss, their running back. But neither one of them was really going to make that much of a difference, I don't think. The Jaguars just completely outplayed them, especially defensively. Josh Allen on the Jaguars defense got an interception, a fumble recovery, and a sack on his other namesake quarterback on the other side of the field. I thought it was very interesting that the Jaguars were able to do this, and maybe that's just a testament to the fact that these Jaguars players are still playing for Urban Meyer, despite all the nonsense that happened a few weeks ago back in Ohio when they were playing against the Bengals. But the AFC is really messed up at the moment, and I think that I mean, later on, I'll kind of tell you what's going on at the top of the AFC, but the Bills, they kind of dropped off a little bit now, and they seem very beatable. I mean, they have 3 big losses, I think it is, to the Steelers, to the Titans, and now to the Jaguars as well. I may have missed a loss in there somewhere. I think they're 5-3 at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. But yeah, I always thought that the Bills were the best team in the AFC so far since the Chiefs dropped off. But I kind of think maybe there's a way of beating them that clearly Urban Meyer's figured out. I mean, they just need to, take the ball out of Josh hands a little bit sometimes, because I know he's an unbelievable player, but maybe spreading the ball around means that the Bills' offense might not be so predictable at forcing the ball down the field, especially on long passes. So moving on to the Texans and the Dolphins, I didn't pay attention to this game at all. It was really funny to think that this is such a weird game as well. Like, looking at the box score, yes, I didn't watch it, so it's hard to comment too much, but there were 9 turnovers in this game, and the Dolphins won this game despite throwing 5 interceptions, but 5 turnovers. That's insane. I mean, it's the first time that a game has been won more turnovers than any other game, in the last 5 years. And it's more, I think, the first win that the Dolphins have had with 5 turnovers since the 1980s. And I mean, it's just funny to think, like, both of these teams are so bad. I mean, even Tyrod Taylor now coming back for the Texans, he still throws 3 interceptions. I thought that if Tyrod Taylor came back, they actually looked like a team like we saw in week 1. But now, doesn't look like it. I mean, Tua was a late injury. He was a late injury before the game, and I think that just says a lot, really, because I mean, the Dolphins, they're not desperate for Tua to play. Otherwise, he probably would have been on the pitch. But I mean, Tua, if he's not able to get on the pitch, he's not able to prove the haters wrong, and I think that's going to be probably one of the biggest kind of signs that he's not going to be there going on to the future, because I think the Dolphins are getting tired of him, and if he gets injured, they're going to get even more tired of him, and they're going to move on from him quicker. Maybe Deshaun Watson's there. These last few weeks have been really tough for the Raiders, especially off the field, with the John Gruden email scandal where he resigned, and of course the nasty car crash that Henry Ruggs was in where he killed a woman. So unfortunate to hear that happened in Vegas. But I mean, Henry Ruggs, now he's cut off the team, facing jail time. It's been a real struggle for the Raiders off the field. Henry Ruggs is going to be in prison for up to 40 years, I think it is, potentially. And there's another life lost in the woman that passed away, so unfortunately. So the Raiders have had a really tough time. They've got no head coach, and their leader is Derek Carr. Derek Carr wasn't able to get the ball moving down the field this week against the Giants. The Giants played amazingly defensively. So unfortunately for the Raiders, they weren't able to get it done, but I mean, it's completely understandable. The fact that they're still competing for the playoff spots, I think, is really admirable, considering, well, all the emotion that's gone into their last few games, and the fact that they're missing a deep threat now with Henry Ruggs out. So there's a lot of talk that Deshaun Jackson is going to be coming over since he was cut by the Rams earlier this week, or last week, sorry. So they may be able to get a bit better offensively, throwing the ball down the field. So Henry Ruggs might be able to be replaced. But, I mean, that's not the biggest thought we have towards Henry Ruggs at the moment, whether he's able to, well, how the Raiders are going to fare without him. But I think that the Raiders might be better going forward, but I think they needed this weekend to kind of come back down to earth. The Giants, on the other hand, played a really good game. Defensively, very solid. And it looks like they're kind of back to how they were last year defensively. Defensively, they were fantastic, stopping teams left, right, and centre. They looked brilliant. And now, this year, they're kind of getting back to that. They struggled early on in the season defensively. If Daniel Jones is able to kind of fix up his team offensively, with Saquon Barkley coming back, with Tony there, and of course their big free agent signing, Kenny Galladay as well, coming back from his injury, they're getting healthy now. And maybe they could be a team that's really tough to beat. The Chargers against the Eagles was a weirdly entertaining game. Both teams approached the game very differently. The Chargers aimed to throw the ball as much as possible and lean on their excellent young quarterback Justin Herbert. And the Eagles, on the other hand, well, they lent on their quarterback and his strengths, which was running the ball. And they also ran the ball with a number of different running backs as well. They actually looked really good in terms of moving the ball down the field. They took the Chargers, who I think are going to be a good playoff contender this year. They took them right down to the wire. It ended 27-24 to the Chargers. And I think that whilst the Chargers did come out on top, I mean, the cojones on Brandon Staley to keep going for it on fourth down on that final drive is big there. I mean, he could have gone for a field goal and bottled it, but I think that he showed a lot of guts to be able to trust his offense. And I know it doesn't show a lot of faith in his defense that he kept going for it on fourth down, or his kicker that he kept going for it and trying to move closer and closer. But I think it also played into the fact that most NFL teams now, with a minute and a half left on the clock or a minute left, they're able to drive down the field, and the Eagles may well have done that as well. So I think it kind of shows that the Chargers, they're trying to win. They're not trying to throw away games late like they did with Anthony Lynn last year. I think it was Anthony Lynn, their head coach anyway. Because last year they should have lost 6 or 7. They should have won 6 or 7 games that they lost late on because of bad head coaching decisions. And Brandon Staley's decisions really paid off this week. The Eagles at the moment, they're really struggling defending the pass. So that's why I kind of think the Chargers lent that way as well. Because there have been 5 games so far this year where the Eagles have let the opposing quarterback get 80% completion percentage or more, which is a huge amount. And it's just really not sustainable. So the Eagles fall to 3-6. And maybe there's a bit of evaluation going on with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni because they're not really clicking. They are competing a little bit against the good teams, and they are, of course, beating the bad teams like the Lions a week ago. But I just don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be that franchise quarterback. He's not accurate enough, and I think they may actually have to move on from Jalen Hurts, similar to the Dolphins and Tua next offseason. The Chiefs were blitzing all night against the Packers, and I just think that the Jordon Love was not able to deal with it. I think the Chiefs blitzed 17 times, and only 6 of those times Jordon Love was able to complete a pass. And it was just a real horror show offensively for the Packers. I mean, the Chiefs, they really knew that the Packers were going to lean on the run with Aaron Jones, so they crowded the box, and defensively they played fantastically, not allowing any points scored until that fourth quarter when the Packers kind of got into it a little bit. But Jordon Love just did not look anywhere near as good as Aaron Rodgers. So I think that Aaron Rodgers might be muttering under his breath that he was right or something, of course, very Aaron Rodgers-like. Of course, he's I don't know, there's something weird about Aaron Rodgers. He seems like quite a selfish person and seems like I don't know, not quite sure. I don't know how to put it, but I just think maybe he was right about Jordon Love all along and that the Packers really do need Aaron Rodgers. I think this season, definitely, Jordon Love is not ready to play for the Packers or even take them to the play. I mean, he's ready to take them to the playoffs because of Aaron Rodgers already doing so much for the Packers. But I think if Aaron Rodgers wasn't there this whole season, the Packers don't look good enough to get to the playoffs. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is there yesterday, they win the game. The Chiefs are not good enough to stop Aaron Rodgers defensively, even though they have been playing pretty well the last couple of weeks. But going forward, going offensively, the Chiefs, they did not look good yesterday. I think Patrick Mahomes only had a 54% completion percentage, and it was bad yesterday offensively for the Chiefs. They had punt after punt after punt, and they barely scored any points, just 13, I think it was. Yeah, 13-7. So it took a really big Chiefs defensive effort to keep them, well, I mean, Jordon Love just didn't get it done. But it took a lot of effort from the Chiefs on defense to get them into the position that they were. Patrick Mahomes still doesn't look quite right. And even though he's still connected with Tyreek Hill, they just do not look trustworthy. And even though it's their first game without an interception for Patrick Mahomes in a while, I still cannot trust them. Against a good team with a good quarterback on the other side of the field, I think they lose that game. So, yeah, I mean, last week I was very disappointed by them against the Giants as well. So I reckon the Chiefs maybe they might miss out on the playoffs this year. I mean, the Raiders at the moment, they're a lot more productive offensively. Derek Carr still had almost 300 yards last night, despite having a really tough game himself. So maybe we don't see them in the playoffs this year, which would be really mad to see. Okay, so on to the Cardinals and the 49ers. I am even more convinced right now that the Cardinals might be the best team in the league than I was before yesterday's game. I mean, having Colt McCoy as your starting quarterback, looking almost just as good as Kyler Murray. Well, of course, Kyler Murray, there is no other person that can ever compare. But Colt McCoy has done a lot to try and look and play very similarly to Kyler Murray. And even without their best player, Kyler Murray, their second best player, DeAndre Hopkins, and also their second best receiver, AJ Green, who's a massive leader in the locker room. And of course, remember, JJ Watt's out for the season as well, so missing all of them. I think the Cardinals blowing out the 49ers in the way that they did, well, maybe not a blowout, but 31-17, is real domination. And they're now, I think, the top seed in the NFC again, with the other teams losing in the league. The Packers lost. So the Cardinals, they look like the real deal. And they just looked so good. I mean, James Conner, he had over 173 scrimmage yards and 3 touchdowns. And the 49ers really struggled to stop them. Colt McCoy, he wasn't doing anything crazy. He was dumping the ball off here and there, but he looked really good. And I think giving the ball to your best players, your best weapons, that's a great way to succeed. I mean, Tom Brady did it a lot in his career at the Patriots. He didn't air the ball out nearly as much as he did now as he does with the Buccaneers. So they did the Cardinals, top team. They also had 2 forced fumbles defensively, which they were able to kind of take those possessions away from the 49ers and score off of them as well. They were able to score off of them as well. So I think the 49ers, they're kind of down in dumps now. I don't think they'll be getting anywhere near the playoffs at the rate they're going. Maybe that means Kyle Shanahan's on the hot seat. I think Trey Lance doesn't look anywhere near as good as he should, considering how high they drafted him. And Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, he wasn't so bad yesterday, but we all know he has flashes of bad games here and there. So I don't know. They need to get that quarterback situation right. Maybe Trey Lance isn't the right option. Maybe he is. I think we'll have to see later on as we go down into the future. But it's not looking so hot for Kyle Shanahan. Maybe he is just an offensive coordinator at heart. Okay, so now onto the Titans and the Rams. And the Titans, they were unreal on Sunday Night Football. Their defense was fantastic. They had a really, really top game, intercepting Stafford. I think it was a couple of times, one of which on the goal line, basically, and the second of which went for a pick six, 24 yards, which is by Byard. And they just completely handled the Rams. And the Rams have been playing a couple of really bad teams the last few weeks. So now playing a top team, maybe they just weren't ready to play high-intensity football. But they just did not look themselves at all. I think that the Rams, they'll be fine. Maybe it's just a burn-the-tape game, similar to the Cowboys, I think, did yesterday. But I don't know, the AFC is just mental. And now the Titans, they really have a hold on it because the Bills lost, the Bengals lost. The Ravens, they did win, but they were a couple of games behind the Titans, I think. So the Titans, they kind of have a handle on the AFC. Maybe they're the team that's going to get to the Super Bowl. Imagine a Cardinals and Titans Super Bowl. That would be mental. I mean, Tom Brady, I'm sure, will probably have something to say about that. But back to the Titans, and they were just brilliant defensively. I think it was Simmons and Autry just completely demolished that Rams offensive line. Andre Whitworth, all of them, they didn't know what to do. So they won the game 28-16. And of course, they had a late touchdown. I think it was like 28-9 was probably the actual final score. The Rams, they got a garbage time touchdown. But yeah, I mean, defensively, they stepped up. And even without Derrick Henry, they still showed that they were a top team. Adrian Peterson and McNichols didn't look so hot. But I mean, the Titans still got it done one way or another. I think it really goes down to head coach Mike Vrabel, the fact that they were still dominating the game and showing their toughness, even without Derrick Henry, the guy that kind of epitomizes who the Titans are. They were able to get it done without him. So, I don't know. maybe they are the best team in the AFC after all, considering the Bills just seem to throw it away against, even the Titans, the Jaguars. So the Rams, they just did not look themselves really. They got it to Cooper Kupp a couple of times, but Stafford, in the pocket, he didn't really have, he had time to throw, but he wasn't really finding anyone. And of course, 12 penalties for over 100 yards is not good enough by the Rams standards. So I think next week, I can't remember who they're playing next week. Maybe I'll have a quick look, sorry for you. Week 10. So I'm searching this up on wallofnfl.com, where you can find all of your live scores, all of your breaking news as well. And of course, your schedule, you can find it there, which is where I'm going now. So week 10, it is the Rams are playing against the 49ers on Monday Night Football. I think the Rams will win that one. 49ers don't look like a very good team. Maybe the Rams need to kind of warm up against some good teams rather than some bad teams, because I don't know, they look like they struggled against good teams last night. I think this will be a bit of a wake-up call for the Rams. It was a big L. They will come back out of it, and they will be competing for their Super Bowl place for the NFC. Maybe they'll play against the Titans again later this year in the Super Bowl. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it's been a very different video from what I've previously done, so please comment down below which kind of video you would like, whether you would like it, how I've been doing it up to week 9 so far, or whether you prefer this kind of format. Maybe I'll try and live stream as well if YouTube gets its act together as well. So maybe that'll be a good thing to do. So let me know, exactly what you want me to do. Follow us on social medias on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and always on TikTok as well. Lots of posts go up on there each week. I kind of cut up the videos and post them up on there. So let me know if you enjoy that, or follow if you like that. Check out wallofnfl.com. As I said, live scores, breaking news, and anything you could really want. Exclusive articles go up on Wall of NFL as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you for maybe the Week 10 preview show, but I am going to LA with my wife Rebecca to see family, so maybe the schedule will look a little bit different.